Greetings, this is Charles Darwin. About 3 years ago, I posted one of my very first videos on this channel talking about natural law. And I talked as if we all knew exactly what that was. But actually, the more I've thought about it, the more I realize that natural law can refer to at least 3 different kinds of things. Let's consider the first category, and that is things that just simply have to be that way. They couldn't possibly be any other way, or so we would think anyway. An example of that would be something like 1 + 1 = 2. Now, wouldn't that seem to be obvious? How could it possibly be different in any conceivable universe? Of course, as soon as you say conceivable universe, you've opened yourself up to all kinds of problems, but it seems to me anyway that it would be impossible for 1 + 1 to not equal 2. Nevertheless, according to a site called computationalcomplexity.org, it took Bertrand Russell and Alfred North Whitehead 300 pages of mathematics to prove that 1 + 1 = 2. Why did it take so much? Well, I don't really know, but let me take an example from popular culture. This is from W.S. Gilbert, The Complete Operas. Gilbert and Sullivan wrote an opera known as The Mikado, and I'm going to read to you a little bit from that opera. For my dear opera friend Carol, please forgive me, I'm not going to do the kind of job that you do on this opera all the time. At least I'm not going to try to sing it. Now, the story is that Nanki Poo is going to be beheaded in a month. Yet in return for being beheaded, he's going to be allowed to marry the beloved Yum Yum. And of course, they're very happy that they're going to be married, but there's this little niggling thought that's bothering them, and that is that in a month, Nanki Poo is going to be beheaded. And so Nanki Poo enters where Yum Yum and her friend Peep Bo are, and Nanki Poo says, "Yum Yum in tears, and on our wedding morn," Yum Yum sobbing, "they've been reminding me that in a month you're to be beheaded." And then Peep Bo said, "It's quite true, you know, you are to be beheaded." Nanki Poo says, aside, "Humph, now some bridegrooms would be depressed by such a thing." And then he says, "A month? Well, what's a month? Bah, these divisions of time are purely arbitrary. Who says that 24 hours make a day?" Pity Singh says, "Well, there's a popular impression to that effect." Nanki Poo says, "Then we'll efface it. We'll call each second a minute, each minute an hour, each hour a day, and each day a year. At that rate, we've about 30 years of married happiness before us." And then Peep Bo says, "And at that rate, this interview has already lasted 4 hours and 3/4. Well, of course, that's not going to happen in this video right here. So, according to the humor of the Mikado, to question whether or not such things as 1 + 1 = 2 would be ridiculous, and that is, of course, the basis of much comedy. Well, that's one kind of natural law. The second kind of natural law is physical constants. For instance, the gravity constant, the charge of an electron, things like that. Those are constants as far as we can tell throughout our universe. Perhaps, however, those constants were established during the first tiny sliver of a second of the Big Bang. And that in other universes produced by other Big Bangs, that those constants might end up being different. So they are now universal natural laws, but they don't have to be that way. They can't be changed now, but they have to be that way, but some other universe might have different ones. Of course, we'll never know, will we? There's no way we can ever find out about those other universes. And then there's a third type of natural law, and that's where things are the way they are, but they didn't have to be. They're the result of historical contingency. And for examples of that would be the length of a day and the length of a year. Our day is what we call 24 hours, but that's because of the rate that our planet just happens to rotate. And 365 days in a year, that's the number of rotations that our planet just happens to make as it goes around our particular star. Of course, the length of a day and the length of a year would be different on every other planet in every other solar system in the universe. And so this brings us back to Gilbert and Sullivan. Who is to say that there are 24 hours in a day, 365 days in a year? Well, it has to be that way on the Earth, and that's not purely arbitrary, but it was the result of historical contingency, and yet we still call it natural law. Now, it doesn't mean that it's absolutely unchanging. Apparently the Earth has been slowing down, and it was rotating faster in the past, and I've read that back in the days of the dinosaurs, that there was about 400 days a year. I cannot confirm that, that's just what I read. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is that when we invoke natural law, at least it's good for us to think about what kind of natural law we mean. It's Charles Darwin, tally ho, and amen.